subject is KCRW DJ, Novena Carmel.
Hello, hello! How you doing? You good out there? All right. Well, welcome to the official FYC screening of Sly Lives, The Burden of Black Genius. And with us today are Oscar-winning director and executive producer, Amir Questlove Thompson. Oscar-winning producer Joseph Patel. Right. And acclaimed music producer, Grammy winner, cultural icon, Jimmy Jam.
And birthday boy. Birthday boy.
I was gonna say that. It's also his birthday today. I mean, should we sing happy birthday or what?
No.
Wait. 5, 6, 7, 8. Happy birthday to you.
Sounds good.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear.
All right, now it's in F minor.
Happy birthday to you.
By the way, can I just make an observation? Novena, are you a dancer? Because you just started 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the way dancers start. I'm just calling it the dance in the room. They go 5, 6. No, dancers are 5, 6, 7, 8. Musicians are 2, 3.
Is that why everybody was off? All right, so since we're in a mood of being loud and using our voices, I thought we could do one other thing before we get into this. On the count of 3, yell your favorite Sly and the Family Stone song. 1, 2, 3. That's great. You guys are awesome. All right, thanks so much. We're out of here this day. Okay, amazing film. It's so great to be here. It's also surreal to be here. I gotta say personally, for many, many years, decades, maybe even my whole life, I was like dreaming and hoping there would be a documentary about my dad of this caliber. But I didn't know if there would be, you know. Sometimes it doesn't happen, so I'm just really thankful that it exists. So thank you. And watching it, I also wish that everybody could have a documentary of their own parents, like whether they're famous or not, because it just gives you so much insight into who they are as people before they had kids and just like their humanness. And yeah, I don't know, like I guess it's not possible, but one hack to that is I would say talk to the people that your parents know, like their friends, from when they were young. It is so illuminating and so beautiful to like get to know your parents better when they were before you.
I'm world famous for hijacking the interview and
Oh no, we're just hanging out.
But I'm curious, like how before the doc, like how deep into your dad's history were you in terms of like for people like us that are like free, you know, we'll get bootleg concerts, scour the earth, trying to find different versions of songs and all those things. Like, what was your basic, like, what was your introduction to him? Like, when did you realize, like, oh, my dad's the shit?
That's funny. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I did not realize how big of a star he was until I saw the documentary. Wow. I know.
Yes.
I'll tell you why. So I was born in the 80s, and what you see in the documentary is very much so like the idea of there's certain artists that stay prevalent in culture, like that are known for many years, like that was mentioned in some of the interviews. And for me, he wasn't somebody in the 80s that like people were talking about. My friends mostly didn't know who he was. So to me, I was like, he's not at the same level as David Bowie or Michael Jackson or Mick Jagger, because like people know who those people are, and my friends know who those people are, but my friends don't know who my dad is. So to see like that moment in the film when the woman was like, he could have been president, that really hit home. So that I think would be my best answer to that, is like I didn't really understand how big he was. I did have the albums at home and stuff like that, but I just thought he was kind of like, I don't know, it really hit me in the film. But I want to ask you guys, what was your first interaction with the music of Sly and the Family Stone?
Oh, for me, it was just, growing up in Minneapolis and just hearing the music on the radio. First of all, Questlove does such a great job of what I would call, my analogy is always a chef's kitchen in a restaurant. Like if there's a place you go and you absolutely love the food and you go, wow, this is the best whatever I've ever had in my life. And then you get invited to sit at the chef's table, meaning you get to actually watch how the dish is made. And then you have this whole revelation of why it tastes so good and why it's so great. And I'm not avoiding the question, but what I am doing, because I was thinking about this as I was watching the film, we're all blessed to have Questlove in our lives. Because what he does, he not only has a keen understanding of the greatness of music, but then he's also a great storyteller in the way that he makes us all appreciate it. And I know a lot of us walked in here tonight as Sly and the Family Stone fans. I guarantee after watching his work, you walk out with even more reverence for him, for more respect for his greatness. And that to me is the key to a great documentary. So I just wanted to say that about about Joseph. You guys have created something that, as big of a Sly and the Family Stone fan as I am, I walk out of here tonight even a bigger fan. So.
Now answer the question.
Well, I was going to say,
No, so, I'm sorry, the radio stations in Minneapolis, there was really no black radio in Minneapolis when I was growing up. There was like a little up to sundown black station that you could only get, if you lived about 3 blocks from the station. And so I grew up on pop radio, but I remember hearing Sly for the first time and dance to the music and that kind of stuff, and those early records. And they were so different than the Motown records that were pretty much the black records that were being played on pop radio at that time. And back then, because there wasn't really music video or anything back in that day, you had to wait until the group appeared on if there was an American Bandstand or Ed Sullivan or whatever it was. And seeing the mix of people and hearing the music I've never seen anything like it. Like, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget just my impression of hearing that. And it made me, I was already in love with music anyway because I grew up in a musical family, but seeing those images along with those beats and those songs totally was life-changing for me.
Joseph.
my story is not nearly as interesting. Actually, it's funny, when Amir asked me to work on this film with him, I said yes, obviously, but I was not obsessed with Sly, I think the way that you were. For me, it was always P-Funk. That was the thing I was obsessed with, right? Sly was like one tick of the generation before me. I knew Sly's music through hip-hop. And part of the fun, I think, for us in making this film was like trying to understand Vernon says it at the end of the film, when you discover Sly through hip-hop, you don't know what albums came out in what order, you don't know his backstory, you don't know the baggage that comes with him. So I think I discovered his later records before the earlier records, and I didn't have any sense of when they all came out. And so part of the fun for me in making this film was figuring all that stuff out and understanding. It's funny, everyone we interviewed, a lot of people said their favorite record and their first album that they really got obsessed with was Fresh. And I think when I listened to Fresh in the pre-production phase of this record, just like I listened to all the songs in order, right? And I was like, I can see why people love this record as their favorite Sly album, even though it was sort of the beginning of the end, right? And yeah, so I kind of came to it late, and I didn't really know the contours of the story. Part of the fun for me making this film was figuring all that stuff out.
Yeah, I've shared this story before. Basically, when I was 2, my sister and my mother was washing my hair in the bathtub, and I guess because I wasn't given official rules of hair washing etiquette, I didn't know that you should always keep your eyes closed getting your hair washed. So on top of getting the soap in my eyes, my sister accidentally bumps the Ajax cleanser. Oh man, I had so dramatically. And of course, you know, once it hits the tub and the smoke of that, so I'm screaming bloody murder as a 2-year-old. And all I remember, so this is my first memory in life. I remember the hair being washed, and then suddenly, I must have ran or whatever. We're downstairs in the living room, and I think because the pain was so excruciating, all I remember is that my father was pinning, so they were trying to flush my eye out, flush the, you know, like water, whatever. So I remember that, you know, every black household has the former gallon of milk that's now the water jug. So they're trying to pour that all over my face, and I'm like resisting. So I remember my dad pinning my right shoulder, my Aunt Karen pinning my left shoulder, and kind of Clockwork Orange style, my sister trying to keep my eyelids open, and my mom just like pouring this thing on, you know, just getting my nostrils and everything. And all I remember was just laying there and looking to my right, and that American flag was, you know, I lived in like I think by that point, maybe we had like, maybe like 1,000 albums. We had like a large library of records. Like, later it became 3,000, but back then it was like small, so it was like 1,000 records. But there was, the American flag was there. And even the way that flag is captured on the cover just seems rather just dark. And Just Like a Baby is playing. And if you're familiar with the sound of Just Like a Baby, which, you know, I'm kind of glad that was our last song while the credits were rolling, because of the kind of the creepy way that they're ad-libbing, like it just, that menacing bass line was playing. And the thing is that I forgot about it. And then when I was like 11, I heard that bass line again, and instantly, like, you know, the Kill Bill moment when Ironside plays the Quincy Jones. Like I heard, doo, 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 and I stopped. She's like, I remember that bass line, and that's, I was like, wow, that's my first memory in life, like just, and I think maybe on the floor, it was like the thing I concentrated on while this painful thing is happening, but I just never, I became obsessed with that album. And so that's why I never had a comfortable relationship with it. Because when I would talk to hip hop artists, you know, anyone would be like, they acknowledge that Riot is the first funk album. So for them, the relationship is like, yo man, like, that album changed my life. Like, it's just, you know, so early, it's so funky, and da-da-da-da. And I don't know, there's this, every time I hear it, it makes me so sad inside. So when we were editing the Sly footage for Summer of Soul, which at the time he's doing that, it's 10 days before Woodstock. I tell Joseph and I tell Josh Pearson, our editor, I'm like, yo man, like Sly doesn't even know that 10 days from this moment, it's gonna be such a crazy paradigm shift, not only for him, but for us as well. Like he doesn't know that 10 days from now it's gonna be Woodstock, and after that happens, his life changes. And that's the documentary I wanna see. And then Common, of all people, like maybe 5 hours later, on my way home, it was pandemic time, so, you know, it's like quarantine, like on a farm, like kind of upstate New York. So the long drive back, Common just happens to call and says, hey man, is it true that you're directing that Black Woodstock film? Like we didn't have a title for it yet. He's like, you doing that Black Woodstock thing? I was like, yeah. He said, well, Sly did that, right? I was like, yeah, we just working on that today. He said, man, do you know that we have the life rights to Sly's story? And after you've done that, do you think you'd be into doing Sly's documentary? And I was like, yo, you must have been spying on me, like literally. So that's kind of how it came to be. So but yeah, I've answered 12 questions. But,
That's great.
yeah.
And you were already working with Joseph on the Summer of Soul film, and it did well. Won the Oscar.
Not bad.
So you already felt like you had a little magic happening there. Did you feel like, okay, the pressure of the idea of perhaps like a one-hit wonder? We don't want it to just be a one hit. We need to, you know, what is that like going into your next documentary after winning straight out the gate?
I personally was so obsessed with wanting to know what happened between 1969 and 1971. And especially because of my position in music, in which I'm always in the passenger seat of an artist who I will get asked. Every day someone will ask me, yo, like, you know, the internet meme of, like, you only have one job, like, all you had to do was show up, or all you had to do was, you know, like, why is that always late? Why is that always in trouble? Why is that, you know? And I figured maybe through this story, it's not that I wanted to tell his story, but I figured maybe through his story, I can explain to you about the other 36 stories as well. So,
Wow.
for me, I was curious.
Yeah.
Well, so 2 answers to that question, and then I think we should ask Jimmy all the questions, because I can't believe he's here, actually.
On his birthday.
Perfect.
So Amir and I always talk in rap shorthand. So, and how we met is I was a music journalist interviewing him for my first cover story in '96, and it was also the Roots first cover story for Rap Pages magazine. And Dream Hampton was my editor, which is a weird, like, little confluence of things.
Yeah.
And so it's, you know, when Summer of Soul happened, like, we didn't expect any of that to happen. Like, literally, we made the movie that we wanted to make for ourselves, and like, we were so happy that when we got accepted to Sundance. And it just, like, I cried when I heard that news, and like, and then it just got better and better. And it's like, we were like, this is our 3 feet high rising. We have to make De La Soul's dead. Or is this our Illmatic, and we're gonna come back? You know, it's like, you know, it's like, that's all we talk about. And then it was just sort of, at some point, we were like, all right, let's just make the movie you want to see, right?
For the record, I always thought Summer of Soul was our Yo Bum Rush the show. And that Sly was going to be It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold.
And Josh Pearson is our bomb squad. So
Yeah.
it'll always, anyway, this is how we spend our time. I forgot the second thing I was going to say.
That's okay.
That's all right.
We're nerds, that's all.
So Jimmy Jam, how were you approached to be in the film? And also, when they asked you the concept of the burden of Black genius, we heard what your answer was, but what were you thinking?
I thought it was a great concept to think about, because I think first of all, genius is an interesting word to me anyway, because I think to be genius you have to be a little bit crazy. And I always feel like I'm not crazy, I'm just very normal, so I don't really think of genius for myself. But I think that there is a burden of black, there is a burden. And part of it is expressed in the film, where it talks a lot about where you basically are, when you're representing, it's not enough to go make a record, you're basically representing a whole race of people. And your success or failure becomes their success and failure. And that is a pressure that nobody knows, to me, if you're not black or if you haven't achieved that level. And then it becomes really tough to reconcile, you leave the hood to be in a nicer place. If you have a family or whatever, you want to live in a nicer place, but then the people in the hood are like, well, why are you leaving the hood? And then if you stay in the hood, people all know you got a bunch of money, so they're robbing your house. So it's a conundrum. It really is. And Novena, I thought your question was really interesting about the follow-up question, because that's the other thing that you have a burden of, is when something is so successful, now how do you follow to that next thing? And so I think that as an artist or any sort of, whether it doesn't matter black or white or anything, you're always going to have that burden of expectation. But I think for black people, it's just a different level, because we're really carrying the pride of our race with us. And we are all rooting big time for Joseph, for Questlove, for people who we hold to this standard, and we're like going, man, I hope this movie's good. Because if it's not good, it's going to ruin it for everybody. And that's not fair. It really isn't. But that's the kind of standard that we're held to. Just, and I think that's a different thing. So to me, that's the burden of black genius.
You didn't ask me the question, but I'll just...
You can do whatever you want.
The thing is, yeah, of course, okay, now I'm going back to rap album analogy with Nas and Illmatic. For those who don't, okay, so back in 1994, Nas released his debut record on Columbia Records, Illmatic, and it's pretty much just accepted as the grand slam of what we will call Renaissance hip-hop. And it remains to be seen if he was able to get over. It would be like if Thriller was your first record, then what happens next? And for him, sort of exemplary career of like, well, was his sophomore as good as this impossible, mountain climb and the rest of his canon? So, I mean, yeah, I'd be lying if I didn't say to you, ooh, we better come with it. But for me, the success of this film, like my one and only goal in this film was to try to at least assist and stop in starting, pressing the brakes for a vehicle headed nowhere. Like if you follow me on Instagram, the temptation to not, as is, my Instagram account is already just a running obituary. And I'm in a business in which, the fact that Ice-T, Flav, Chuck, a few other luminaries are north of 60, like they might as well be 100, because, hurdle number one is not getting shot. So, it's 23, 24. Now we have the new versions, like people ODing, again, self-medicating. So, I'm very much obsessed with the idea of self-sabotage and the idea of we only have one job. So for me, the 20 to 40 targeted people in my head that I long to have an intervention talk with. Some are in the movie. You can instantly tell when they realize they've been ambushed. Like, motherfucker, you said we was talking about harmonies, you know.
Yeah.
Rhymes with Fangelo.
Yeah, so, you know, at least what I plan to do while I have the power to make these films is that there's always a subtext under the story. So yes, I will tell the story of the artist, but then I will get to the ulterior motive of why this film. So I'm hoping that, you know, my community feels that it's safe to take those first hard steps to the steps to mental health out of it. And I'm the prime example of it, you know, because it wasn't peaches and cream after the Oscar. Like, for me to do this film as I was literally going down, not the same route, but I totally understand why one could, in a snap, kind of sabotage everything. And so, even, like, my mom called me out instantly, just like, I see what you did there. Like, what do you mean? It's like, you made that film for you. And I was like, busted. So.
And actually, you know what's interesting, sorry, I found an interview with Amir from 2015. I forgot what it was for. And he literally, it was the D'Angelo movie that never came out. And you mentioned the concept of the burden of black genius in this interview. And it was wild.
Wait, how did you see it?
Kareem sent it to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's this documentary that...
I saw it too, by the way.
It's great.
Do I look good? No, I'm playing.
Yeah, we had popcorn and
Well, yeah, she showed it. Okay, I forgot that you came to
But like, it's this documentary in D'Angelo shot in 2015, and in the documentary, Amir at the end of the movie is talking about, he says it, the burden of black genius. And he's talking about D'Angelo, and he's also talking about his peers. And when we first sat down to talk about what the Sly movie, it's about Sly, but it's also about this. And we lived it. Like, there's a list of about 12 artists that we had reached out to be in this doc, who either said no right off the bat, or said yes, and then, what's it about? And then when we told them what it's about, they were like, no. And then 2 people who said yes, and within 12 to 20 hours of filming, after everything was booked, canceled. On him.
Who was that?
I'm not going to say it.
That's right, you gotta ask.
Rhymes with, no, I'm playing.
And as a producer, obviously, looking at the clock and looking at the budget and looking at keeping us on the train on the tracks, I was livid. I was like, there's not you could call Amir and say, I need you in Tallahassee, Florida tonight to do this thing, and he would be on a plane to do that for them. They couldn't do the same for him, right? And he was very philosophical about it. He was like, no, this is them living the thing that we're talking about. And that really resonated with me, and I think it is the thing that Sly's story is incredible, it's very unique, but there's a thing that it shares with a lot of other black artists ever after. And to this day, I'm sure 90% of us in here have made Lauryn Hill jokes about her being on time. She did a thing at a show a couple years ago where she said, do you know how hard it is for me to get on stage every night?
To wake up in the morning.
To wake up in the morning and do this thing for you. And I thought that was that's what it really those are the times when it really resonates, and I think that this is our attempt to try to just highlight that.
I was just gonna say the interesting thing too that it all has in common is that, I always say to make music, for instance, you have really your whole life that you live to do your first project. And so you have your whole life, all the mistakes you've made, all of those different things, and you put it into that first one. That follow-up is the toughest one, because now a year later or whatever, you go, okay, I need something new, and it's like, well, wait, where am I drawing from to do it? The other thing that happens is because the first one is so huge, now you have the weight of expectation on it and the way that it's looked at, because it's no longer a pleasant surprise. Like, oh, I'm surprised how good that was. Oh, that was really good. That doesn't exist anymore. Now people are walking in, okay, let's see what you got now. You know, and it's a whole different type of thing. So I think that's some of what Sly was dealing with, and what everybody was with.
You mentioned earlier, or kind of, something that you said made me think of the hope of putting out there that it is challenging for people's mental health to be in these positions that you're mentioning. And just this last week, I saw Vic Mensa. He posted a video on Instagram. He's a rapper, artist.
I love his Instagram account, man.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
So smart, and he just keeps getting smarter and having more interesting things to say on songs, and also just like as a person who's talking and existing in the world. He's an activist as well. But he did this really vulnerable post where he has like tears on his face. And he said, I didn't know if I was going to post this, but I just felt that I needed to. And he's talking about the mental health of musicians and how it's effing tough. Like, it's really, really difficult. And he was mentioning in the streaming era in particular, where people really devalue art in a way. He was saying that, like, James Blake, another artist, created a platform where artists could put their work, and it would be $10 a month, and you could access it, and the money would go to the artist. And people were like, I'm not paying that. I would rather pay $10 to one of the other streaming services and have all of the music. I don't want it to just go to one artist. And he was like, how do I make art in a world like that, you know? And so I'm curious, like, from your perspective, you both, or all three of you have been around for a while, but you're also very, like, current with everything going on right now, and how the pressures of the world that is shown in the documentary, which is like 60s, 70s, 80s, versus now compare. Did we lose some of those, but did we gain new ones?
That's a great question, because, you know, I think we spoke a couple of times, like, it's almost like we knew that this film was coming out during this time period. Now, I'll admit that I thought that things were going to be just a little bit different. Okay, I'm a sucker, a dreamer. But I think the reason why I do feel compelled. So when Summer Soul came to me, it took them 7 months to talk me into it. Like, I was like, all right, what's the catch? Why y'all choosing me? Why me? Why me? Again, like me sabotaging something before you know, you get to see the promise of it all. And I try to get rid of it, you know, swimming in unworthiness and all that stuff. So first of all, I do a lot of mental work during the pandemic. So it's almost like I know it's weird to say, like, thank God for the pandemic, but literally that's what forced a lot of us to do life pivot. And I wasn't talking this way before 2020. And so I will say that maybe this is my version of trying to save art. Because the thing is, I know that we have this longing, artists have this longing feeling to, you know, buy the world a Coke and sing in harmony and kumbaya to death. You know, like, think of We Are the World. Like, let me write a song and then that will unite the world and da-da-da-da. I do believe in that, but I absolutely believe that we have to do the work inward first before we even get to the the lofty idea of saving others, you know. I know when we say like save yourself, it sounds rather selfish to do, but I mean just at the rate where I don't think it's normal. I don't think it's normal for the alarming number of just rampant death and exiting that I'm seeing artists go through, especially black artists going through right now. I mean, this morning, Wayne Lewis of Atlantic Star died.
Oh, man.
And I'm obsessed. I'm wondering, like, what was it in his life journey that said, okay, at 68, this is over? So I think that with these films that I'm doing, and it's hard to do, because the other side of that coin is even extracting the information out of them. You know, this is therapy for them. For a lot of them, most of them aren't asked, like, how do you feel? You know, if this was just about, like, okay, well, what happened in 1960? Oh, we made a hit record, da-da-da-da-da, but people don't ask you how you feel. And so it's, for me, I think that is my mission, to make these films that have a subtext that can plant a seed of us taking steps towards something that we normally don't do. Like, you know, most of us have been dismissive about the idea of like therapy or any sort of counseling or the work, you know, doing the work. So maybe this can help. Yeah.
Totally. And I was just going to say that one of the things I love, something you guys both said, you basically are making the thing that you like. And I've always been very selfish about that, I guess, in a way. Terry and I have always, musically, we've always just made the things that we liked, and then we just hope people agree with us, right? And I think that's what you guys are doing. And I think that's, to me, the honesty in doing that, and the want to, besides telling the story, put a context around it, or put a frame around it. In this case, mental health and the burden of black genius. And it's interesting that is very true that you observed that he said that a long time ago. But it's one thing to actually say it, it's another thing to actually put it into practice. And that's what you've done here. And that, to me, is the great thing about you and what you do, Questlove. I'm in love with you, man. And also the other thing I kind of gleaned from what you said is that when you're making something like this, and I feel this way when I'm making music with Terry, is that I'm not really making, honestly, I'm making the records first to please myself, and then there's probably a handful of people that I want to please, maybe 10, 20 people who I really care, and like I always know that.
Like who?
Like Questlove, number one. Like he's like literally there will be like little things, we'll make a record and sometimes we'll put a little thing in a record and I'll be thinking of Questlove as I'm doing it. And I'm like, Questlove's gonna hear this. And then I'll get a text, you know, 6 months later or whatever. Hey, what were you thinking when you did that one little, because it'll be something that nobody will hear but him.
It's like code, right?
Yes, it's like code. It's like the little things that are there that you know certain people are gonna pick up on, and it's really cool to do that. But I think you do that in your films and in your music and your cookbooks and your. But I think you do that, and I think the consciousness of doing that is very cool, and very appreciative. You know, very appreciative.
I just want to give it up to this man, because first of all, he did this, so when we interviewed him, Amir had this idea, he's like, we should interview them separately. Because if you interview them together, Jimmy will do all the talking. And so we interviewed them separately, and my favorite part of the film is the thank you for letting me be myself scene. And you guys tell the same story, in the same cadence, and we were able to cut it together in a perfect way.
3,000 miles apart.
Yeah, it's so good. And then the other thing I love is the music breakdowns, right? Like part of what we wanted to do was we wanted to give the audience the language of how these songs are structured.
That's the chef's table.
Right? That's the chef's table part. And And I remember when we were talking to you about Stand, and we didn't do playback. You did the song, you recited.
You knew it was in C sharp minor.
And
That's
perfect.
crazy.
I know, I do have,
And it's-
I do have.
But we were so blown away by that on set. Like we literally are staring at each other. It's in time. It's the perfect pitch, the perfect key, and it's just and when Josh was editing it, we were just flabbergasted. He's like, I don't hear playback. Where's the playback?
Do you guys understand what we're saying?
Yes.
Like, literally, as he's telling that story, it's as if he heard it in his head and knew exactly the BPMs and the
Perfectly in rhythm.
By the
was
way,
so good.
by the way, the editing on this movie is amazing.
Yes.
Show you the multitasker that you know Questlove has to be. We were literally in a meeting, actually for the Rock Hall, and we were in a meeting, and we're all kind of sitting around the table talking, and Questlove is sitting kind of on a tier, kind of above us on his computer. Whole time he's on his computer, he comes on, says a couple things in the meeting, and then he's back on his computer again. We go to lunch, we take a lunch break, and he goes, Jam, come here, let me show you this. And it's literally that piece that's in the movie. And Terry hadn't been cut in yet, it was just my piece, I believe. He was literally sitting up editing the movie during the middle of this meeting. Like, check this. I mean,
I was on Zoom with them, and
yeah. No, it was perfect. So that's how things get done. By the way, I'm still learning. He's teaching me.
Vernon Reed also should be in every documentary.
Jesus
Yes.
Christ,
Again, like Vernon, we gave him 10 pages of homework, right? Like we gave him like a heads up on what we wanted to ask, and we sent him some clips and some songs to listen to, and he did. And then he came. His interview was like what, 4.5 hours long, and it was just like spectacular. And I gotta say, it's so refreshing and so fulfilling to interview people for a story you want to tell who are engaged with the subject, like Jimmy, like Terry, like Vernon, like everyone we have in the film. I think there's only one person maybe we interviewed that didn't make the film, but everyone we interviewed like are substantially contributed to the film. And usually in a doc it's like 10 or 15 people don't make it, but like with this one, like everyone really engaged with the subject matter.
Vernon, towards the end of the film, he says it's more than a cautionary tale, which, I mean, I personally really appreciate it. There's a lot of salacious ways that one could approach telling someone's story who maybe made choices that one could judge. And I do want to know how you approached bringing so much empathy to the film and like what early conversations were about it.
I think when word first got out that we were doing this, and this is just from like strangers not strangers on the street, mostly in my DMs or whatever. But it's like, I mean, everyone, I'm certain that you've had to encounter in your childhood, in your teenhood, someone that wants to unsolicited give you their hot take on their Sly Stone experience, and you know it might not be too savory or whatever. Like, oh, we had to wait. And I'm sure you've seen the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episode where they talk about how Hillary was born, and but I mean that's how deep it runs, and it's almost like everyone. I think everyone expected us to just give you the highlight reels of somebody, you know, fucking up or whatever, and I never wanted to do that. And sort of like you, I too was frustrated that his name wasn't up there in the pantheon of when we mentioned these greats and whatnot, especially when you literally list his pioneering achievements in drum machine technology and, dude, video making. I mean, you mentioned the video thing, but I mean, the fact that Everyday People is a concept video, the video to life, the video to dance to the music, like, you know, they could have just done a simple performance and sent it over. You know, the idea of doing videos is if you can't travel overseas, then you send this to them and they show it on their local show or wherever in Germany or that sort of thing. And he's making concept videos, which was unheard of in 1968, 69. So just for him to do all this, you know, for him to have pioneered so much and really not get the credit for it, I wanted to correct history. But again, my thing was that I know other Slys, and it's not. And again, like I know that the whole troubled musician trope that we time and time again ask my mother, what do you think happens to Sly? Everyone does the same thing. Well, you know, just hanging with the wrong crowd, da 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 da. And you know, it's not that easy. Like no one thinks about the mental health aspect of it all. No one thinks about, you know, because yeah, okay, I was a little shocked that he was nervous about going on stage because he looked so confident in doing it. But I also know that feeling as well. Like any stage I go on, like this is a feeling that, you know, I've been on stage since I was 5, so I'm just getting used to it now.
20 years later.
Well, when's the last time? I love you. Yeah, it's a pressure. It's why sunglasses were created. It's why, you know, like. Sorry, Jim. Oh, you're back. Oh, wait, never mind. You had your readers on. All right. I'm half sunglasses today. All right. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, snap! I didn't even know that. Yeah, if.
You know you're doing something like when the sunglasses get a round of applause. Where's Ray-Ban at? Is somebody else?
Yeah, I think that's important because oftentimes I know for a fact that oftentimes because we just make it seem so effortless that you kind of have to remind people that we're human beings, and that's important. You
Isn't
know?
that crazy? You gotta remind people you're a human being.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the super kicker. Sometimes we gotta remind ourselves that we're human.
Yes.
You know, that's what
Very true.
By the way, you're great in the documentary.
Thanks.
You really are.
At early showings of the documentary, I kind of love the surprise element, because when we first introduced you, of course, you know, super fans know, oh, from KCRW. But then, I believe at the Sundance screening, once we retitled your low thirds as Daughter of Sly Stone, then the collective gasp of, like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, there was to watch it, and thank you guys also for receiving the film. Of course, you know, we made it with the, I guess we kind of knew that it was immediately going to go to streaming and not to theaters. So any chance that we get to watch it in front of people and hear different things that we didn't know were funny, things I didn't know were funny, like get laughs or those sort of things. Like it's great to watch it. And
You all laughed at The Godfather.
yeah, like, who knew that the end was?
That was supposed to be a serious moment.
By the way, Novena, I was just going to say, it was a pleasure, because I think the first time we met, because I've listened to you on the radio for a long time fan, but I think the first time we met was actually the day that
We were interviewed the same day.
yes, how cool, and that was cool. And,
That was really cool.
And Quest actually
That's the
said that
first
to me.
time?
That's the first time we'd ever actually met, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Getting
that
your
was-
makeup
that was-
done backstage.
That's right,
Yeah.
sure enough.
We do gotta get out of here, but I am curious what's in the works. I mean, this feels like just the beginning. You're telling stories in this really incredible way that you do, so what's on the horizon?
Well, he's doing the most fun one. Well, actually, we're all working on projects. All right, what's your project?
Well, there's a Jam and Lewis documentary.
Yay!
This is kind of fun. We just executive produced a documentary on Curtis Mayfield. Actually directed by her, the artist her. And it's really a musician talking about a musician. It doesn't delve a lot into personal life, but it does delve into the making of the music and stuff and the things that were going on around it. So it's pretty cool. We just did it at South by Southwest, got a really good response. So fingers crossed on that one. And then Terry and I are trying to follow in Questlove's footsteps and direct our first documentary. And it's on some people that Questlove knows well, Gamble and Huff.
Oh.
And Tom Bell from my and I called him actually in the car and I said, hey man, I need you to come on this project as an executive producer. And never heard from him, didn't hear from him. And I said, yo man, I said, if you were making a documentary about Minneapolis and didn't call us, I'd be like, wait a minute, what are you doing? So we're making a Philadelphia documentary, how can we not have you involved in it? And I think I sent him the Khruangbin song. What's the one that just goes, yes? You know that one?
Evan finds the third room.
Yeah, that's the one. Evan in the third room. And I sent him that, and I was driving in my car, and I just said, okay, Questlove, I need you to say this. And the song goes, yes. And that finally got me the response, right? So I had to just get the musical brain working. But those are the fun things that we're working on, trying to tell some stories and trying to follow in Questlove's footsteps.
Nice.
I'm directing a documentary on Jay Dilla.
Oh.
That Questlove is executive producing.
Switching the roles.
Switching
I want to be involved, but I want to tell Jay Dilla's story, so he's blame him.
And it's about Dilla and how he changed music, but really it's about time and what we do with it.
Ooh, cool.
And so we're about 80% finished. See, I tell people, yes, I'm using Earth, Wind, and Fire to tell the story of metaphysics.
Yes, that makes sense.
Physical metaphysics.
Yes.
Yes, so, I mean, because, Earth, Wind, and Fire, all of their music someone described it once as Jesus-less gospel music, which it is, but pretty much every song in their arsenal are affirmations.
Yeah.
They successfully tricked us into loving ourselves and singing positivity. So I'm going to attempt to trick people into metaphysics by watching the Earth, Wind, and Fire documentary.
I also have one documentary suggestion idea.
Yes.
Cornbread Harris.
Oh, yeah, nobody knows who
I know who
that is.
that is.
But that's my dad. He was my first professional gig. I was a drummer in his band when I was 12 years old. He just turned 98 years old. And he still plays every week. He's got a weekly gig that he
Every
plays
Sunday night.
Every Sunday night.
Sunday.
Yep, every Sunday.
Where?
Where?
Piano and sings.
Huh?
He plays the piano when he
He
sings.
plays the piano when he sings. And
And he's really good.
he used to play, he was on the first rock and roll record that was made in Minneapolis back in 1955. His band, he was with a band called the Augie Garcia Quintet. They actually opened for Elvis back in the day. And but he's had a really long line. We were estranged for 50 years. And we came back together through a series of circumstances. And he has a book, if I can do a plug, he has a book that's called Deeper Blues. That's available everywhere. And Andrea Swinson, who wrote the book, is kind of the Prince Whisperer back in the day, but she covers a lot of great Minneapolis songs. And so it was cool, because literally before we came on stage today, or right before the movie started, I got a call from my dad wishing me happy birthday, which was very cool. And so anyway, yeah, he's alive and playing, and I get to sneak up to Minneapolis and play gigs with him sometimes. It's a lot of fun, so anyway, Cornbread.
Can I
When your dad called, you answered the phone, you said, "Hey, cornbread."
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay, we gotta get out of here. What?
By the way, when you say we got to get out of here and you throw it to him, now you know.
No. It's a quick question. I could ask you in private, but okay, so I'm obsessed with creative epigenetics.
We're gonna be here for 30 minutes.
No.
I keep getting the signal.
So I'm obsessed with creative epigenetics, and the thing I've never asked you was that how did you get involved in radio? Like knowing your father was a disc jockey, did that make you want to do it as well, or did you just fall into it and it was a coincidence, or?
Maybe I was like meant to be there, but it wasn't. It just was it was a series of events. I always loved music, so then I started DJing because I love sharing music with people. And then I found out about this station called KCRW that was the perfect place for someone like me that has like taste that goes from here to there to share the music that I love. At first, I was thinking that I would reach out to them, and I was like, no, I don't know. They reached out to me, and they said, can you submit a demo? And I said, yes. And I did, and so from there, and I wasn't even thinking about my dad having done radio at that point. And then I was like, oh yeah, he did radio.
Because you're such an amazing radio personality, and the way that, and the thing is, we only really featured like not even a minute of his, but what we collectively have like of his archives is like, I want to know how he learned to do that. You know what I mean? And so I always wanted to know the connection between you two. All right, that's like cops are coming to get us.
I have one last thing to say before your outro. Only because
Everyone's leaving us.
because we have an active audience. Hold on, real quick. It's so important to support the arts on whatever level you. Everything that we hold dear as artists and as creatives is under attack. Everything. So, and be proactive in any small way. 1,000 incremental acts will lead to something bigger. It's so important.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks so much. Violator is now streaming on Hulu, and there's an added audio commentary you can watch on Hulu. We're having an after party, so hang out. I'm gonna DJ. At the coolest DJ booth ever. And also just want to say thank you to KCRW, to Onyx Collective, and the DGA Theater, and to everybody here, and to our panelists. Thank you.